All right, thank you for still staying with us on a holiday like this. Now, the number of men and women in the world is roughly equal. However, gender inequality persists everywhere in business, education, politics, etc. This stagnates, of course, social progress. Now, in Ghana, there's low representation of women in decision making, evidenced by only 12.7% representation in parliament. Practices such as early marriages, female genital mutilation, or witch camps still exist. This is us as a country. There are still complex issues concerning male dominance and patriarchy, and the need to be addressed in order to step up effort towards achieving sustainable development. The incidence of violence against women and girls and inadequate access to productive resources such as land and credit also persists. Again, that is our story as a country. But you've heard by now that gender activists at the Women Deliver Conference in Canada were not too pleased with President Akufo-Addo's submission on women empowerment in Ghana. What exactly did the president say? Well, the president said despite the majority being women in Ghana, not much political action had been witnessed in their push for greater inclusion in Ghana's political administration. Why don't we listen to the president? We'll come back. I'll introduce my guests to you and we will get the conversation going.
The majority of the people in Ghana are women.
Yes.
52% of our population is women. So if we have to have an ordered society, to have a fair society, those statistics should count. They should be decisive in what is done. And they're going to be decisive when politicians like Natasha. Oh, she's a politician. She is a politician. I think that President Kenyatta would agree with me, and so would Justin Trudeau. She is a politician. When they are able to be where the decisions are made. Because at the end of the day, communities or groups talking for themselves and being representative does not translate into power. The most important thing is power, that you sit around the table whereby the decisions that you make are enforced and become the norms and regulations by which the society lives. So I think that is the, for me, what I've seen in the 2.5 years that I've been in office, that not enough movement is being made by the 52% of the Ghanaian population that are women to be able to be in the position to make these decisions. The cabinet that I have, some 30-odd% of them are women.
30%.
30%. Is not good enough.
So next,
it doesn't
20%
reflect
more next year.
Well,
yes.
And as if they re-elect me, we'll see. But
if you campaign on that, they might.
Is that push that is key. And we are not, this may sound for the ears of people like Ella very reactionary. We're not seeing enough dynamism and activism on the part of those who are seeking this new. We're not. We're not. No, yeah, we're not. I'm talking about dynamism where it matters.
When was the last time you saw a dynamic head of state?
I'm saying those dynamic is not sitting around here talking. I'm talking about electing people to parliament, controlling political parties, because they are the instruments by which our societies make decisions. We're talking about decisions, not wishes and hopes. We're talking about decisions.
Okay, so that's what's gotten some people divided. Where do you stand on this? We'll come to you in a bit, but let me introduce to you my guest in studio. Abinawa is a gender and youth activist. Joanne Obeng is an entrepreneur. Dr. Nefertiti Pupampu is a learning science and performance specialist. Good morning to you, ladies. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending your holiday morning with me, at least, and everybody else who is watching. I have to ask, what is wrong with what the president said? Do you identify with what our president said on that stage? Maybe I should start with you.
Okay. So I think that the president wasn't being fair to gender activists, especially in the country. There's so much gender activists like myself are doing, and it's not just in corners where it's being hidden. We are out there, it's so open. We are on TV, we are on radio, we are on social media. There are gender activists who actually go to the Flagstaff House to engage him. There are petitions that has been sent to him. There are meetings that has been held with him. So if he goes on an international platform to say that there hasn't been enough dynamism and activism, that is him trashing the effort of gender advocates and activists in the country, and I don't think that's fair. I like that he mentioned in the beginning that the instrument of power, that's what is used to make decisions. And I believe he was talking about policies, enforcing and enacting and then implementing policies. And you need women in parliament to be able to do that. They have to be there.
But where are the women in parliament?
Exactly, they are not there. And putting the blame solely on women is not fair, because we know women are making the effort. And as Allah mentioned, there are systemic structures that are preventing women from getting there. It's not because women don't want to be there. Of course, yes, there are women who are laid back, who don't want to venture because they are afraid of being tagged witches, bitter women, ugly, obadending, yasantua, and all the insults that come with it. So it's not that women are not doing anything. It's not that activists are not doing anything. It's not that women are not pushing themselves. If you push yourself, you are bound to fall into a pit, because the system, the environment is not conducive for women. So yes, in as much as we want to tell women to make the effort, we have to also recognize the fact that the political environment is not friendly to women.
Okay.
So he putting the blame on women, it's not fair.
Okay, so your interpretation is that he's blaming the women.
Exactly, that's what he was doing.
All right, let me come to you, Dr. Poplampu. Can you identify with some of the things that the president said? Or let me just plainly ask you, what do you make of the president's comment?
Okay, so I think I identified a dynamic that we've seen in other contexts. So when people are in positions of power like he is, sometimes what happens is they accept the status quo, and then they feel as though, well, there's nothing I can do about that. So that is something that has to come from somewhere else to be fixed. I didn't cause that problem. And so I need somebody to fix it. It's because they've become part of the system because it was already there. And they don't realize that you, the person talking, the day you stand up and say, actually, no, not this. Instead, they will be here. If they are sitting here, I'm going to move them so they sit here. You've changed it. And so he's missing that it is he who has to do something to see what it is he's asking for. He's part of the system that has created the wall that he can't see behind when he says that all of these things don't exist, right? And so the answer that I gave him was excellent, because she said, it's for you to amplify their voice. Interestingly, he had just dampened the voice, right? So we hear of all these things that are happening, and instead of him talking about what's happening, he's saying, oh, there's not enough. The moment that he says there's all this happening, all of a sudden it's on the stage. And so he's the person, while he doesn't realize it, he's the person who is in the middle, causing it to look like it's not happening. So it's almost, it's not that it's not happening, but you are not representing it so that it looks as if it isn't.
It's interesting, because some people feel, and really we can outline some of the things that this particular president has done. But I want to ask you the same question, and then I'll come to that second leg. What do you make of what the president said?
Before she comes, can I say something to what Doc said? So the issue is that, and I'm glad she mentioned the efforts the president himself is making, and Allah pointed him to that. We've had interventions, supposed interventions, where the political party said they were going to make sure that a certain percentage of the women vying for positions in their district assemblies and all that are women. And I think there was a press conference, it was in the news, but they didn't do it. We know there's a certain percentage.
So that would be specific with the NPP. They were trying to leave a certain quota for women.
Exactly.
And try to make the filing fee also lower for women. But we know that that was greatly shut down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you talk about things like that, it means that you know the situation on the ground, you know the problem, you know the role you have to play, but you are not playing it. And so it's important that you first recognize what you have to do and what you are not doing that is contributing to the current situation. And that's,
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I think globally we are making major strides towards empowering women. Nationally we are, but we are still not there. So I feel the media is a tool for change. To be on a platform like that, to educate the masses. I'm told there were over 8,000 women in there. You have to speak one voice. And we live in a society that is sadly patriarchal. We are trying to unlearn some of these things that we have imbibed since time immemorial. So I feel that was supposed to be a platform to unlearn, engage women, educate them, let them know how powerful they are, and steer change.
So what he said was like, is it true or not? Like what he said, what the statement that he makes, because I kind of hear, oh, because of the platform where he was, he should have been more positive about the situation in Ghana. But really, we're all Ghanaians. Is what he said true or not?
I don't agree.
You don't
with
agree,
what he
okay?
said. I don't agree. I think there has been so much dynamism. There has been so much advocacy concerning some of these women's rights, and to say that women have not done enough is to downplay the efforts of women so far.
Okay.
Because if women had not done enough, the Beijing conference wouldn't have been pushing all these gender equality goals. Even as UN Sustainable Goals number 5, seeks to promote gender equality. Coming down nationally, we have so many laws, conventions on the elimination of discrimination against women that Ghana has ratified. To say we are not doing enough,
okay. Can I bring all of us back to something?
Okay.
You can just step in, yes.
I might have, and I'm not playing devil's advocate, but as a scientist, if somebody asks me, is it true or not, that is a statement true or not, then we take, what are we measuring? The question is enough, right? So I don't know that, I think we can each say that we have an opinion on whether or not we're doing enough, but it's dangerous to say that because we're doing a lot, yes, it's enough, and he shouldn't say it's not. So perhaps also in that we should be thinking, what is the piece that he thinks is missing? And whether he's mistaken or not, let's find out what that is, because we are the ones who are trying to make that effort, right? And so to identify what that gap he thinks is, now it takes us, even if the objective measure is that we are, it takes us to be able to see subjectively, these people think we're not, because of that gap. Okay, don't worry, we'll handle it.
Can I try to put in what I think he was trying to refer to? Because I tried to listen to him yesterday, and I tried to write down a few things. He says, I'm talking about electing people to parliament, controlling political parties, instruments by which society makes decision. Right there. Where are we in that mix?
Okay, so there are two sides to what he said. The first part being that women are not making the effort. We all know who runs political rallies in the country. It's women. It's women who organize. It's women who campaign. The men are just there as the face. It's the women who do all the groundwork. If they are good enough to put these together, why are they not good enough to be elected? You see, there is that angle where women are not being pushed. That's there. That's an angle from what he said. And then there's that angle where women themselves are not putting themselves out there. And that's not because they don't want to. As I mentioned earlier, the systems and structures don't make it easy. And so if you are a woman and you are not pushy enough, even the few who are pushing, we've all seen what's been done to Esla. What hasn't been said about Esla? What wasn't said about
but to be fair, I mean, are we trying to say, oh, treat women differently simply because they're women? What's the call here?
No,
because what happens to Esla, the communications minister, who is also a member of parliament, happens also to the men colleagues. True or false?
Based on what you said. So there is, Mama B, there is gender-based discrimination. We know all politicians are spoken ill about. They are insulted all the time, both men and women. But there are specific discriminations that are done to women just because they are women. We know ministers, we know members of parliament who have wives and have girlfriends and have baby mamas. Nobody insults them with that. Let's have a woman divorce her husband and it is news. Let's have a minister say she's divorcing her husband. or let's have any internal family crisis or anything within her family, it's her fault. She wasn't home to take care of the family. She decided to be a politician, and that is breaking up her home. Do we say that about the male politicians? No. So there are specific, of course, politicians all over the place, both men and women, are insulted by the average Ghanaian. But there are some that are particularly targeted to women because they are women. And those are the things that pushes them back. So as Allah said, there are women doing enough, but the doors are closed to them.
You know, our president has been branded as a gender champion. I mean, he's the first to have gotten a female chief of staff. He's maintained some of the things that he came to. We still have a female chief justice. There are things that he's done, I mean, to give him the credits. And there's a part of me that feels like somebody who's been at this for such a long time, he's pointing us to a certain direction and now saying that, listen, guys, make the decision, like get yourself to the point where you're now calling the shots, but you're not expecting somebody to be there to make the appointment. Okay. I mean, do you kind of appreciate where he's coming from that point of view?
I really appreciate this. So the issue is, how do you invite women to the table to make decisions? That's the main issue. And like the doctor said, and like my fellow discussant has said, you have to create, the systems must allow these women to come to the table to make decisions.
Pause there. What are the systems? Yes. Let's talk about those instruments.
There are so many women who would love to take up political positions, but it's not easy to fund or finance a campaign. It's not easy to pick a form that costs 4 billion cedis or 400,000 cedis, or pick a form that costs 200,000 cedis. It's not easy to finance a campaign. And looking at other states, for example, the USA, looking at the Emily's List system, there are certain groups that help to champion women with political ambitions. They seek to finance them. They seek to fund them. And you want to create the systems where the women sit at the table to make decisions. Why not? We are doing well. We can do better. Nobody is downplaying what we are doing. We are doing very well. We can encourage ourselves to do better. We can appoint more women on boards to take decisions. We can make more appointments that involve women. We appreciate the fact that we have seen women grow to become. And one thing is that you see what you want to become. When young women see women that have risen or are rising, they aspire to become. It's a way that they break out from the usual patriarchal ideologies that they've experienced. Naturally, in our society, women do not own their success. You find out that a woman has achieved something so great, and she attributes her success to external factors. But a man is so confident and owns his success. So naturally, a man is confident. That is the society that we find ourselves to be in. So why are we educating? Dr. Kwejiagyi once said, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. If you educate a woman, you are educating a family. So when women are more family inclined. Women are more welfare inclined. They have a ripple effect. So if all these platforms are used to educate women, you are seeking to educate them, to make them feel confident, to make them feel they can do it. When you watch the likes of Charlotte Osei, when you watch the likes of Nana Oyelitha, when you watch the likes of Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, Angela Merkel, you get encouraged, you are inspired, you want to become, you want to become like them, you aspire to become. It's inspiring for you. So already you are building that confidence that ordinarily was not existing in that patriarchal society that we are all trying to run away from. And we are all getting there. So to say, I feel you can never educate somebody enough. Every day is a learning process. So all these women championing women's rights are aiming towards something to make women feel that they can also become. And if they feel they can become, that is how they are empowered to be on the table to make decisions that affects us. Okay.
So, Doc, let me ask you the same thing. Do you, the points in terms of get to that very point where the decisions are made, so that you begin to make the decision, you begin to make the call, you begin to make the appointments, not appealing.
So, all right. So because I'm not in the context that he was speaking from. So you've given us some ideas that I think he was speaking from this context. You've given us some ideas of what we are seeing.
So he actually goes. You know, we had to cut it at a point. But what I said in terms of, I'm talking about electing people to parliament. He actually said that.
Yeah, I remember.
He says that. Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I would watch the rest of it so earlier. So, but the point that I would make is that there isn't an absolute truth in that sense as to whether or not those barriers exist. So the question is, right now we are asking ourselves, what do those barriers look like? We're all talking about them because he brought them up. When we are saying that, oh, maybe we've done enough and they are not allowing us to push through them or push past them. But what are they genuinely like for us? So and so far we've asked the question, what does it look like? There's money involved, but then we can always make
the campaign.
They can always make the argument that, you know, there's money involved for anybody who wants to step up.
They have men have the money.
And for women who have the money, they will get in, and for men who don't have the money, they won't. And
but
so
if men have the money, there is a huge economic imbalance between men and women in the country and the world at large.
And so when we ask this, so are we saying that because more men are already making money, it means that women have a barrier to what they need to get to that should be compensated for in order to amplify those voices? Or is he trying to say that, oh, well, that means that we should be pushing to ask for the ways in which we should be compensated, or should we be making other inroads or some other way of coming into the situation? And I think that if we say that there are barriers, then perhaps we need to change the discourse and focus the conversation on just specifically what those barriers are. Because even us here, we've asked that question multiple times, and he was able to talk about them and be told, oh, why did you say that?
Yeah.
When he's like, oh, no, but I'm being real. I'm saying what's actually there, right? And so I think that the more we can hone in on precisely like how you're saying right now, well, there's a historic, so rather than speaking in terms of the generalities, we can go straight to the point and cut right through and say, well, historically, we don't have the financial backing, therefore we're already disadvantaged. So fix that, and you'll see us represent the way you're asking us to do.
Can we also what I was expecting for him to do? Point out those barriers and not just angle it on women, because we know it's not just women who are the problem. There are people who are supposed to do that. So we have the affirmative action bill sitting in parliament. It's been there for years. It's been dragging because there are not enough women in parliament to push it. And we all know why there are not enough women. He mentioned there is about 30% women in his cabinet. His cabinet is made up of 21 people. Only 5 of them are women. That makes up 24%. And he could appoint more women. Well, he said if he's re-elected, so we know where that's going. But yeah, that's the problem. And I'm glad she mentioned the funding of political campaigns. We know there is economic imbalance between men and women. More men are employed than women. Men are paid higher than women for the same work done. So there's that economic disparity. Women don't have the same economic standard as men. And that is true. And it reflects in all the abuse, gender, domestic violence that is perpetrated against women because they don't have the economic standing to liberate themselves. So that's obvious. It's not something that we don't know. We know that. And we expected him to point those out. Say that this and this and this and this is the problem. This and this and this is what we can do. This and this and this is what I can do. As a gender champion, that's why I can't even excuse the things he said. You went there not just as a president of a state, but as a gender champion, which means that you recognize that there are issues, you recognize that something must be done, and you are actually doing something. Okay, you are there, your capacity as a gender champion. So, I mean, there's no excuse for what he said. I agree that he's making strides, he's doing something by appointing women, and even by appointing women, I feel it's just tokenism, honestly. He's not appointing women because he knows that these women, and I'm saying this with respect to the gender ministry, okay? We know the issues there. Women are not being appointed because they can do the work.
Because they're capable.
Because they are capable.
That's how you feel.
No, please don't take.
No. I'm trying to. So that's why I'm seeking for further explanation.
Exactly. What I'm saying is, women are not being appointed because they know their work, and I'm not saying they don't know their work. They know their work, but they are being appointed just for, I don't know how to explain tokenism, but it's like putting somebody there because just to fill a quota. Okay.
So can I? Okay. You just land, and then I want to broaden where you are right now. Okay. So we take it to another level.
Okay. So so they're just being appointed because there has to fill that. There has to be that quota. Oh, let's just put a woman in the gender ministry because it's a gender ministry. We want to put a woman there, then it's fine that there is a woman there. Okay. It's not because we want the woman there, that we want to engage her. We want her to do something. We want her to make impact. No, just be there. It's like putting a young person on a panel because we are trying to talk about meaningful youth participation, and there has to be a young person there to make it look pretty. As women are expected to be pretty and quiet. Like they're just put there. So
okay. So let me ask all of us, what impacts the few women in these places that you identify? What kind of impacts have they made? You know, to justify their inclusion, if you like. What do we even care about that? Because you've talked, and I appreciate the point that you just made, where you're coming from. But now let's talk about effect and impact, even the few who are in the places that they are.
So when she made her submission, I realized there are so many facets to this discussion, or so many facets to the issues women face. So we can pinpoint a couple of them here, because I think people are having issues with pinpointing what exactly there are. Women in politics and the issues we just discussed is just one aspect. Now, we also have another aspect being women in the workspace. You see, when people are, there was a Kenyan journalist, a very young Kenyan journalist who spoke just before our president spoke. And she made a point, and she made a submission. She said something concerning the fact that nobody can make a decision for another. Nobody can make a better decision for another. So we women face our issues. We are the best people to make our decisions. So why not include us? Why not amplify our voices? Why not amplify us? Why not give us that opportunity to be on that table to make those decisions that affect us? Let's move to the workspace.
No, I wanted you to merge my question with just what you have said. How have the women amplified our voices in the places, even though they are few, in the places where we put them or where they are? Let's measure it that way.
Okay, so I could talk about women like Nana Oyelita. I could talk about women like Esla. I could talk about women like Hannah Tete. I could talk about women like Charlotte Osei, who were given the platform. And we all know how they excelled. Of course, there were scandals here and there, but I believe that it wasn't because they weren't competent. And that's a problem we have in this country. As soon as we mention women, the first thing we go to is competence. Are they competent enough? We don't do the same to men. These women, and that's why we fly their CVs all over the place when they are appointed. We have to make a conscious effort to prove that they are competent, okay, which is even unfair for starters. But coming back to these women, we know how Nana Oyelita puts women's issues out there. I was at the 2016 Women Deliver Conference, which happened in Denmark. And she was on a main panel. She was also on some plenary sessions. And she was excellent. People clapped for her. She made strides. Talk about Hannah Tete. Hannah Tete put Ghana's name out there. She was all over the place. And she has an international appointment. Yeah, she's all over the place. Charlotte Osei, she's been appointed internationally. People are saying she's going to Pakistan, but yeah, there's that international recognition because they made strides, they made impact, they did something. So that goes to affirm the fact that when we put women there, they work. They aren't just there for decoration, they actually do the work. And I mentioned earlier that there's that tokenism because I personally have an issue with Nana Addo's appointment, the president's appointment of women to the gender ministry since he became president. We've had women heading the gender ministry, women who are not very well versed in issues of gender. And some of the things they have said and done have been problematic.
So how are you measuring that? Is it the effort of the ministry? You know, you're not seeing the effort of the ministry, so you're blaming the head there, or simply because you see that there are ineffective women who have been put there?
I think it's both the effort of the ministry and the person who is leading the ministry. Because if you're heading the ministry, it is your vision that drives the ministry, right? So if you are heading a ministry that isn't performing, then we can blame you also for what's happening in your ministry. And I don't think they are incompetent women. I just think
maybe they're not just right for maybe this kind of job.
Exactly. So you put somebody who is well versed in the issues of gender in a gender ministry, like I know Oyelitha was there, and you see change, you see impacts being made. They are great women. Honorable Otiko is an excellent politician. She's awesome, but she just wasn't fit for the ministry. The current minister is great. She's competent as a politician. There's so much she's done in her constituency, but she's not fit for the ministry. And that is why I mentioned the issue of tokenism. You're just appointing people to be there because you want women to be there. Put women where they have capabilities, where they can function properly, and they will function.
Okay. Doc, let me come to your field, which is the science, because I'm asking about, are women, even in the places where they are they making the necessary impacts? Can we begin to measure? So help us appreciate in terms of women in your field.
I think you'll see the same dynamics, as in there are a lot of, especially the younger women, who are championing the cause, and they're very aware of the fact that we are the front of something that needs to get bigger than us. So you see a lot of, even in you know, for me in learning science, a lot of in education environments and places where they're pulling for more women in engineering and more women in math, that sort of thing. And the women who are there, the young girls who are there, are aware that I'm here and I need to bring more people here where I am, and that notion. And I like that it's so explicit that people actually talk about, like a lot of women in the sciences will talk about that dynamic very openly. And I was recently at a small leadership summit about, you know, girls empowerment over at Ashesi. They brought young girls in the sciences from all these different schools. And there were a few young men also who came just because they felt like, yeah, we're also advocates and we're coming to, you know, support. And the conversation, you could see some of these same mindsets changing, especially some of the men, because you know, they would ask questions or say something, and then people would have to kind of get into the conversation and explain to them why, you know, or what this is. And so I've seen, you know, a good amount of that. And I think that at least from where I'm standing, from the younger women, that they're definitely thinking in those terms and moving in those directions and expecting.
So let me ask, are we telling our own stories? Are we amplifying those stories enough? Are we telling enough of our own stories as women, even with the efforts that we're making in the areas that we are?
I almost feel like it would be better if we say no. No, you have to understand what I mean when I say that, right? Even if we are, let's say no. Because when we say no, we'll say more, right? Because we've answered the question and said, no, we are not. All right, well, what are we going to do? Oh, you said the noise is not enough, we'll make more. He's obviously able to say that, regardless of everything we're doing. Okay, we'll make more noise.
I'm actually very happy you're using this platform to educate whoever is listening. Or, you see, impact is made, for me, impact is made when you fulfill a mandate that you've been given. Impact is made when you can execute whatever duty you bear. That is how you make impact. And if people say that, what are the impacts these women are making? What are we seeing? Are we seeing anything? Women are doing so much. If you've been tasked to do something, be it constitutionally, be it privately, whatever, if you've been tasked to do something and you execute it with so much competence and skill, you are shining on. You are impacting generations. You are impacting posterity. People yet unborn. Those are the people you are impacting. So you are impacting. You can't really measure the depth and the width of the masses or the people you are impacting. Why am I saying this? Looking at the field of IT, for example, IT, we are saying, we know that the world is, you know, advancing towards a cognitive regime where people are more focused on the mind and people are more focused on information technology. That's where the world is reaching. Still, we find very few women in those areas, IT areas and stuff. And we have been privileged to have someone like Lucy Quist to have headed a telco. And under her regime, I mean, Airtel made major strides, did well, advanced, I mean, got a lot of awards. Just recently, she was appointed as the managing director of Morgan Stanley in the UK. That's an investment bank in the UK.
Yeah.
If I hear that a Ghanaian woman has been appointed as a managing director of a UK investment firm, I'm already impacted. I'm already impacted. To be economically empowered, I'm already impacted. What is this whole empowerment thing? Power, access, ability to make decisions that affect you. If you're economically empowered, you can make certain decisions that affect you. If you're economically empowered, you don't become a subservient. If you're economically empowered, you don't get abused because you have to be subservient to be able to live. Do you appreciate the dynamics?
I absolutely do appreciate it, and I guess we all do.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about how are we telling our stories?
Enough.
Enough.
Yes.
I don't know about enough, but I know we are telling our stories. We have a lot of gender activists out there on social media.
Should this be spearheaded by gender activists?
Well,
Should we have like a group, identifiable group like that spearheading, or we should all be telling our stories?
I was coming to that actually. So the issues are there, and it's mainly championed by gender activists. But we know we all have a role to play in telling the stories. The media especially. You are the lead, basically. We can't carry our voices all over the place if you are not pushing it. So the media pushes our voices, the things we say. The media tells the stories of women's issues happening in their communities. The communities that gender activists don't even get to go. The media gets to go there. So the media tells the stories. And so I think a lot or a huge chunk of the storytelling is, I mean, it rests on the media. But we all have to. The media carries what we say, what we put out there. The media is the voice of the people, right? So the media carries what we say. And sometimes I find the media problematic because I think that the Ghanaian media is not gender sensitive enough. And I'm saying enough.
Okay.
There are some media houses that are gender sensitive.
So why do you say that? What is it that we do that you think makes us not sensitive?
Okay, I think that most of the time we can't solely blame the media because issues of gender has been sort of a mystery. It's been covered. It was only just recently that conversations on gender was made mainstream. Everybody is talking about it. It used not to be like that. And the media is made up of individuals. Individuals from these same patriarchal societies. And they come up to make the media. So they are more or less bound. I don't want to use the word bound. They are more or less likely to impact whatever work they are doing as media people with their personal biases and socializations from their communities. That's why it's important to give media personnel media-sensitive education, media-sensitive reporting lessons or workshops and all that. I know they happen. So I think gradually we'll get to the point where every media personnel is gender sensitive in their reporting. Yesterday, Joy carried a headline that got me really disappointed. They reported on the president and they said gender activist heckles the president.
Okay, so that was also a conversation on our platform.
Yeah.
How is that insensitive? What's the definition of heckling? You're only seeking to tell the story as it happened, correct?
But was
because
he
what
heckled?
because what we
Was
do
he
what we
heckled?
do is to report when it happens. We report.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you
But it's
simply
how
just.
you report it. It's how you report
So we
it.
we
that-
looked for the definition of heckle. So I'm going to ask my director or my producer Echo to look for the definition of heckle. They will come back to this. Where you find it, please let me know. But you were taking us to the workplace.
Yeah.
I want us to go there now.
Okay.
What was the point that you were trying to make?
Okay, so let me share a case that happened with you. I'm sure you've heard of it, the National Fire Service case. Yes.
Okay, but please educate everybody because then it's just me and you. We kind of know the story.
Yeah,
So
so,
tell us about it.
2 National Fire Service women.
And this is Ghana. This is Ghana National
this
Fire
is
Service.
Ghana.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, this is just to enlighten the few who still really don't see that there are some forms of discrimination existing against women in present-day Ghana. So 2 women were relieved of their duties at the National Fire Service because in the period of so they had gotten pregnant, and now the regulations of the National Fire Service seeks to say that you cannot get pregnant between 3 years after your employment. Yes, so if you want to get pregnant, you have to get pregnant after the 3 years.
Okay.
Now,
So can you just pause there, Jan?
Sure.
We'll come back to that. But let's
Okay.
look at the heckle. Heckle, but you've watched the video, right? You watched the president. Okay, so heckle, the definition says interrupt a public speaker, and quote, with derisive or aggressive comments or abuse.
He wasn't heckled.
Say again?
I didn't see him.
Okay, but there was interruption? He was interrupted?
No, but you see, if he's interrupted,
derisive
no.
and aggressive comments.
And
what happened?
no, and I think that heckling really is so he got an emotional response, and there was sort of the gasp in the air and the
there was actually the holding. You know, she actually touched the president.
yes.
You know, and she tried to.
yes, and so he wasn't heckled. So when you're heckled,
So that's not heckling.
that's not heckling.
No, that's not
Because
heckling.
there's something when you say someone's heckled, the connotation of that word is basically that
extreme.
you were. Somebody was like, "Oh no, don't continue." You were booed off the stage, or people spoke so loudly and aggressively against what
But
you were doing.
you heard
Yeah, but he
the
wasn't
boos also from the crowd, didn't you?
But he wasn't
But
heckled.
she
There were
didn't
people.
do that. But she didn't
No,
do
no,
that.
but he wasn't heckled. That even when people,
wasn't
if you
heckled.
get that immediate response, people are like, oh, no, why did you say that? That's not being heckled. When you're heckled, you get the person or the small group of people in the crowd who are like.
So you also disagree with the use of heckling?
Yeah, and I tend to be very objective with those sorts of things. If he was heckled, I would have been like, well, he was heckled.
Okay,
So I don't
all
think he wasn't.
Okay, so 2 disagree. You disagree as well?
I don't have an opinion.
Okay, all right. So that's our opinion. Let's go back to the Ghana National Fire Service. So they're not supposed to get pregnant within 3 years of their
Yes,
employment,
so,
which these 2 did.
Yeah, so through Straj, I mean, they were able to get, Straj champions human rights.
But even that, it was a bit difficult. So after Straj, they petitioned, they went through the process, and it turned out you shouldn't even have such a regulation in the first place. Straj actually went to court to enforce it, to get it struck out.
Yes.
So Straj went to court. But it took some time for them to be reinstated. That was the point I wanted to make. It took such a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is not an isolated case. It happens all the time, especially when women apply for jobs and they are interviewed. Majority, like the main questions they ask, aside the questions related to the position they are applying for, is, are you married? When did you marry? Do you have kids? When do you intend having kids? No company will employ a woman who is likely to have kids in the first year of it.
But you know what, Bena, I think that the point where Julian was trying to make really is the fact that in the examples that you're giving, they are not telling you straight away that because of the answers you gave to these questions, I'm not going to hire you, I'm hiring you. But in this case, they actually had it in their regulation, and they actually did go ahead to enforce it.
And actually, let me just go deep down into the explanation they gave, the National Fire Service gave for the existence of that regulation. So they said that they are looking at the woman's health because within the first 3 years, there's a lot of vigorous activity, there's a lot of training. So they think that you getting pregnant within the first 3 years is at your detriment. This is what they said. Now, to be able to analyze what they said to see if it's reasonably justifiable.
I don't mean to cut you, but those people were men, right?
I don't know. Let me just let's just have a
well, the leadership of the Ghana National Fire Service, yes.
Yes.
That's what happens when you have men deciding for women what to do with their bodies. So who don't know nothing about a woman's body.
So this is what the court said. The court said, you know, in our constitution, concerning the human rights provision, the constitution actually allows for any other human rights which has not been stated in the constitution to be added on if it's to the benefits of the human. Sort of. So it's we have our rights to plan when we want to get pregnant. We have our rights to plan our families. Your regulation cannot be justifiable to the extent that you prevent somebody from getting pregnant within the first 3 years. It wasn't really justifiable based on all the tests they ran, and I don't really want to go deep into the legal details of that. But you see, anything that contravenes the Constitution means it's inconsistent with it, and to the extent of that inconsistency is void. Okay. That is what our Constitution says. Let me not go really into the details.
But I guess the beginning of it was the point that even today these things exist, because this is the current
and this is just what we've heard. There are so many others that we don't hear of. There are so many women who actually experience domestic violence, but they don't seek redress in the courts. As they run to churches and they run to all sorts of places and they tell them that, oh, just pray about it, it'll be well. It's a violation of the person's rights.
Yeah. But, you know, Abena, let's come back to, just real quick, because we've got just about 5 minutes to wrap up on this. You give an outline. Sometimes you go for an interview, they ask you all these questions. Sometimes you don't get the job, but you really can't tell, because they're not telling you is because you said, oh, you get married and you want to have children. That's why you didn't get it. How do we change these things in the workplace? How do we survive through them?
Okay, I think that, again, that brings us back to policies. Gender-sensitive office policies. And I think a lot of gender activists have already been calling for that. Let's have workplace policies that works to ensure that women are treated fairly at the workplace. Women earn equal work money, like the same amount of money for the same work done as their colleague men. Women are not sexually abused at the offices, and if they are, there should be channels in place that they can report or they can go through to seek redress. Let's make it such that a woman doesn't have to break her back to survive in an office environment. They should be able to have that flexibility and freedom that men have to excel in the same work environment. So that's something we've been calling for, and I think there should also be that general sensitization on women's economic development. Because let's face it, it's very important. When women are economically empowered, they contribute to their societies. You don't have women relying on men to take care of them. You don't have women relying on the country's revenue to take care of their health, to take care of all of their needs. They have something to contribute, and that's a plus for us as a country, and it goes a long way to enhance our development as a nation. So there should be that sensitization. People should know that empowering women, amplifying women's voices is not something you are doing for the woman. You are doing for everybody. Because, I mean, 52%. Imagine carrying 52% of your population as a load, just dragging them along. I mean, so they are pulling you, the 48%, like you don't progress much because you have to carry this baggage with you. But if you offload that baggage, they are also doing something. Imagine how far we can all go if,
and that's really important.
To buttress that point. So statistics have shown that when you empower women economically, you are actually improving the welfare of children in the society. Naturally, women are compassion oriented. We are caregivers. If a woman is earning something really little, has little, her first thought is my child, the welfare of my child. Why not amplify this traditional role women play and economically empower women? You will see that you would have a trickle-down effect of the benefits. But I'm not sure we've really thought about it to that large extent. This is a very deep point. And a lot of people are trying to channel these things. And like when I was called here, initially I was like, I'm not a women's activist, what am I? I don't belong to any group.
You shouldn't necessarily be. It's
But
just women talking about women's issues.
So you see, we should have one voice. That's the point I'm driving at.
Okay.
It's an individual. Everybody must come together. Everybody must have a voice. Together we can achieve more.
Okay. All right. Doc.
So just answer to the question, if I short answer to the question that you asked, is that we just need more focused education. So the education that we're starting to give, and this is the sort of education that changes cultures. So giving that other side of the perspective to the masses. So we all talked about how the patriarchal systems have been there and the individuals are coming from those. So we just focus the issues so that we know what we're talking about and we can pass, this is the truth, this is not the truth, this is the part you can help with, and this is the small thing you can do, and make sure that that message is nice and clear. And we're going into these workplaces, and as part of their training or their continuing education or whatever they're doing, that they're being trained. I myself do ethics and professionalism training and that sort of things. You know, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, oh, I should be adding on courses on sensitivity. I should be, you know, maybe I should be having a conversation. Now I'm sitting here like, oh, well, part of the problem, right, because I'm a trainer. I'm a trainer and I don't have that. You know, I teach professionalism. I want people to be more, you know, see themselves as individuals, all these, and I don't have this. So I'm sitting here sensitivity.
Okay, so the education started with all of us. You know, just finally, and we've said this over and over and over and over, but you keep hearing that sometimes even women don't want women as bosses because they say the male bosses are more understanding than this. So there's a lot more work to do because we understand what the issues are, and if we're finally at the top, we're not making it easier for other women. Then what kind of examples are we setting? There's a lot of work to do, Abena. Yeah, we have to talk about this some other time.
Yes.
Yeah. Women bosses. Yeah. But thank you so much, ladies. What's up for the holiday? Like, what are you guys doing?
I'm recovering. I just need to rest.
Okay. What are you doing, Abena?
I plan having lunch with some friends. I hope they turn up. And that's it.
Okay.
So I have an exam coming up, so I'll read a bit and
so
I'll
you're
relax.
still learning. Okay, all right. All the best with all the things that you do. Whatever it is,
so
please have fun in between. It's a holiday.